why do I feel heavily meditated after an EFT tapping session? Now, there's a few reasons for this, but I think at first looking at what meditation is, and if I was to ask you a question of, if I fell asleep whilst meditating, am I still meditating? Now, when we look at sleep, we're normally resting at the end of the day, and when we're closing our eyes, our mind is processing the day. It goes into the rapid eye movement, and it's processing the events of our day. It's also a restorative thing, where we feel exhausted, we feel tired, and we feel rejuvenated, hopefully when we wake up in the morning. And with meditation, it would be somewhat different, that if we fell asleep at the end of a meditation, it may mean that we were needing sleep, we were tired, we needed the rest. But in a meditation, in a traditional meditation that's not guided, where you're merely closing your eyes or partly closing your eyes and observing your inner world, and also not getting too attached to bodily sensations or even the thoughts that arise, which can actually be quite troubling for some, because we tend to get overly distracted or attached to a particular sound, a smell, or even the thoughts that arise within our mind. So people can actually struggle with that quite a bit. And it takes time and practice to be able to, I guess, non-attach to some of the thoughts that we attach to and start to become identified with, like, oh, this is like a really annoying breeze, or this is like a really annoying thought that I'm having now, and I'm having this thought that I'm attached to. So it can take some time to detach from not only the sensations, the sights, the smells, but also our own inner need to cling to some of our experiences. It's kind of a point of pointlessness to actually meditate. There's no real point to it. You're not trying to achieve anything, but I guess it's that time to stop doing from a whole heap of doing. It's kind of like a time of non-doing. So you're not really trying to do anything in that time. You're just trying to be within a moment. If we are meditating to the point where we get so relaxed that we go into sleep, it could indicate that that's what we needed. We needed that sleep. We needed that rest. Could have been a stressful day. Now with EFT tapping, what we're doing is we're relieving stress that is stored in the body. Now, anything that you hold on to, any stressful experience, any tension within the body, it can be quite exhausting to actually hold on to that, especially if you're holding on to it for a long time, or not even aware that you're holding chronic tension within your body, or holding on to chronic emotions that cause tension within the body. And that feeling of being on fight, flight, freeze all the time, of that impending doom feeling, or if you're at work, that deadline, that KPI, or having to get to work in time, your body can hold tension, and that holding of the tension takes a lot of energy. It's very hard to hold on to physical tension, and especially when we're not aware that we're holding on to it, we can become exhausted quite easily when we're thinking, well, I should have more energy for that. Consciously, it doesn't make sense, but unconsciously we're bracing for impact, and that bracing creates stress within the body. And having too much stress, of course, create inflammation, and also can create unwellness within the body. It's too much buildup of cortisol. It's not that it finds the weak part of the body, it just finds the vulnerable part where it starts to cause some issues, some health issues. So with EFT tapping, it's a stress reduction tool, and we're cognitively focusing on the distressing thought. If it's a deadline, this deadline that I have to meet, or the stressful experience. And we're also stimulating the meridian system, or the premovascular system, to release that tension within the vascular system, or the meridian system within the body. And this releasing, this relaxing of the body, we start to go from a very sympathetic state, an activated state, to a parasympathetic state, a rest and digest state. And in that rest and digest state, where we're starting to switch off or down-regulate the nervous system to not be so on guard all the time and holding that guard within the body, we start to go into a more relaxed state. And even it says parasympathetic, rest and digest, even as we relax our bodies, we start to open up more of our arteries, things start to flow a little bit more, including digestion. So sometimes when we're feeling fear, we can either void our stomach because we're feeling so sick in our stomach, or that sometimes with eating sort of thing, we're just so consumed by stress that we're consuming that cortisol, and we almost lose our hunger. So going into that digest state, we're either processing food that's already there, or our stomachs might just start to grumble as we come out of that stress state. So EFT tapping is working at down-regulating an already up-regulated nervous system, basically turning a stressful response into a non-stressful response. And of course, in that state, especially if you've been holding tension for so long, or pain, when you go into something that is unfamiliar as far as relaxation, you can get a very zoned out sort of a feel. You can be just really lightheaded and almost exhausted, because it's exhausting holding on to that tension. It's like holding on to that emotional baggage for so long, and then finally being able to put it down. And that putting down, or that letting go, can be like a weight off your shoulders or a weight off your body, and you can go into that very zoned out state. And even tone of voice sometimes, like with my tone of voice sort of thing, it can be, I've been told it's like a radio voice or a low tone of voice, and that can even play upon, once again, our parasympathetic nerve, which is part of our polyvagal nerve that runs from our brain and integrates through our body. That's that thing that activates the fight, flight, freeze response to actually motivate our body. That can actually play upon the tone. So think about soothing music, or something, rain, something that sounds relaxing, and even though it's not physically doing anything to your body as far as touching, there's no tapping, there's no massage involved, it can bring about a relaxed state. So it starts to switch on that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest. And it can even go back as far as like when we're babies, being soothed by the mother sort of thing, that tone of voice, that very soothing tone of voice, which anything that soothes brings a soothing response to a stressed response. It starts to relax. Even if you've had a massage, for example, if you go in for a relaxation massage and you've got no real issues that you think of, you just want a bit of self-care, there's always some part of our body that'll hold some form of tension, and the body needs to hold tension, otherwise it'll turn into a big puddle of goo. It needs like tension to pump muscle, blood around the body. But sometimes we're holding, like, even the massage person will say, you're holding a lot of tension in your shoulders, and you're like, didn't realize. But you come out a little bit almost zoned out because you're so relaxed, because you're starting to get that cortisol that's being locked up in the body. It starts to flow. And with everything, there's an either or, because sometimes we need a little bit more activation if we're in a low state to actually motivate our body. So where there's any sort of emotional block, it might be blocking you either from more energy or blocking you from too much energy. So releasing that and getting back into the flow, which traditional acupuncture is all about. It's about looking at the symptoms within the body and sometimes redirecting or getting it a little bit more enhanced within the body. But with EFT tapping, we're also focusing on what that limiting thought is, what like I'm not enough sort of thing, getting it to a point where we feel enough within our body and have the energy, because if we're always holding on to stress, we're not going to have enough energy within our body, because we're always going to feel depleted in energy. So it's getting the body where it feels a little bit more restored within the body. And there's meditation, there's guided meditation, and guided meditation similar with EFT tapping, although with EFT tapping, it is somewhat guided, but it's more just using the person's words in a traditional one-on-one session. On the YouTube videos, it would probably be a little bit more guided EFT, but with that guided, it's not so much observing of the thoughts, it's following a guidance of someone else's tone and also suggestions of how to relax. So it can be tricky sometimes just to sit and close the eyes and meditate and allow sensations, and not even to become identified with these sensations and thoughts that come up. But that takes time and practice, so sometimes people need that guidance to actually help put them into that state. But similar with a yoga nidra, for example, the point of a yoga nidra is not to fall asleep, but 9 times out of 10 I'll fall asleep. But it also shows that I needed that sleep, I needed that rest, I needed to rejuvenate to get myself into a state where I will be able to sit and be able to observe the thoughts and just have a moment of just being from doing so much. So it's just that pause moment. So it's kind of like a pointless activity, but it has a lot of point around it. It's quite poignant within the body to have that space between, like with music, having that space between the songs makes it less congruent noise and more of a a meaningful noise, and you want to have a meaningful experience by having that space in between. You also want to have more space in your body for more energy to flow by releasing that stuff that is holding you back. And that's with EFT tapping, we tend to tap on the negative to allow the positive, because if we've already got the positive, then we don't need to tap on anything. So I think that's a way of looking at why we feel so heavily meditated after EFT tapping, and it's actually a good thing. It shows that we're releasing stress. It's beneficial. There's no real downsides to it. It shows that, you know, if we're holding on to stuff, that it's good to let that go, so we can actually feel that nice little zoned out feeling, and feel that we can have a nice sleep or a nice rest, or have something to eat, or get more fluids in the body, or just have more energy to be for ourselves and think for ourselves. So there's always benefits to releasing stress. There's benefits to sleeping, of course, and there's also benefits to meditating. And with all these sorts of things, it's kind of finding the different times and practices for things. So there's time for sleep, there's time for EFT tapping, and there's time for meditating. Not one is more than the other, but sometimes one is needed more than the other given life situations. So I'm Dion from Eflowtion Support Services. I hope that helps, and if you've got any more questions, feel free to jump into the comments section and let me know. In the meantime, check out the other videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.